we're gonna tear apart this bottom end of an Athena as fast as we can. Show you guys some tips and tricks. First tips, don't let the hammer hit the frame when you pull the trigger. So I put my thumb right there. See me knock out. Panels, I'm gonna, some of them are a little looser and they'll start to want to come out on their own. If they're not, I don't bother. I recock the hammer. I'm gonna pull up my thumb safety. The trick to the thumb safeties is you wiggle. Oh good, we got it tight there. You're gonna wiggle these up and down, but in this top 1/3, they really shouldn't quite be this tight. And then you're gonna start to see them move. And there are some cheater tricks, so I wasn't planning on showing cheater tricks on this, but as good a time as any. I take a Post-it note and I flip it in half. And then with the thumb safety up, come in and Atlas cuts a slot in here just for this. I apply just a little bit of pressure. Actually, this works just as well if you're not down very much, but down just a little bit of down pressure there. Now what I want to do is push this up like this and get it to move off of the post without prying very much. I'm kind of just using this as a wedge. Of course, this one's super tight. There, and then it popped, it went. And if you look down here, I didn't scratch the hard chrome. That Post-it note and not prying down is a big factor there, right? And so then it comes off. And this one's just a little bit too tight, so I'll adjust this one before we put it back together. So this comes up and out. Remember, your hammer has to be cocked when we do this process. I'm going to take that pin out. Put the hammer down. I'm going to pull out my mainspring housing. The Atlas ones are always tight. We like to keep that stuff really tight. Same thing with the beaver tail. Here comes our sear spring. Next spot. Punch out my hammer and sear pins. I should let my guts fall out of the center of that. All looks good. Now as I'm doing this, I'm going to be checking some stuff. One is that this trigger has plenty of free movement. It does. Now these, if you've never taken out a mag catch, the mag catch has got a little slot in it, so you're going to push these out not quite to halfway probably. Actually, I'm almost all the way to full extent, like 3/4. And then what that does is this little notch right here is in the gun, and when you turn it, when you push it out this far, it's almost all the way. Then you're able to notch it in here, capture that spring, and come out. So now we got to do the screws. So there's two different sets of screws. The back is 1/8 inch. Those shouldn't be in all that tight. You do need blue Loctite when we put these back together. Now there's a bushing still in here. I'm going to deal with that in a second. What works well for that is a big roll punch, like a 1/4 inch roll punch, just a little tap. Tap. Now we've got two small screws in the front. I believe they're 1/16. Now this is important to have a long enough tool so that I'm not going to scratch the frame of the gun. So I check my clearance on my tool first. I'm good. This is probably the hardest one and takes a little bit of finessing. So I'm in there, and on this, and I'm going to apply pressure, and these two came apart nicely. If they don't, what you're going to do is you're going to apply pressure, and when you start to, you can kind of feel them start to strip out between the tool and the screw. And if you start to feel that, stop, get a heat gun, and apply a bunch of heat to both sides of that, and then go hold the pressure tight. It really helps when a third person's putting heat on there, or a second person, I should say. And you just hold the pressure on there till they let go, and they will. There's red Loctite up front here, because if you don't, they'll vibrate loose. This system's set up on a bushing. So there's a little bushing between the two, so they could unthread in theory from either side. Usually one side ends up doing that. And then my grip comes off, and my trigger comes out. And there's a complete Atlas disassembly. If I wanted to care, again, let's say I want to take out my grip panels and they're really tight and I don't want to scratch. Now you can't see anything down here, it's all hidden by the mag well, but let's say we don't want to scratch it. Again, same thing, I'm going to put this here. I'm going to be really, really gentle. Here it comes out my... Not all of them are quite that tight, but we do like it when they are that tight. Alright, we're going to put the gun back together. When I drop this in, it's really important that I do that test. I don't want any delay in that return. Feels good. Come up on the frame. Still feels good. I'm going to keep checking that as I go. Bushings have a flat top to them. I'm going to stick my finger under here, and I'm going to try to push the bushing underneath the frame just with my finger. I'm going to put a little blue Loctite. Just a dab, especially if it's already got some on there. And I'm going to throw this on here. Change back out to my 1/8. Flip my ratchet over to drive. And I'm going to start driving this. And then I'm going to flip it up and make sure that my bushing's underneath the frame rail. And if it's not, or if it's missing just a little bit, you'll pull the corners off. You'll break the corners. So just make sure it comes in nice and straight. This one did. We like to do this stuff with a 18-pound limiter. Fix It Sticks is our favorite one. Boom, 18 pounds of pressure, done. Flip the gun over to the other one. Same thing, I'm going to come over here and make sure it's underneath the frame. Part's worth going slow there. 18 pounds, life's good. The front here, need a little red Loctite. Now, Loctites matter which one you use. This is 266, which is high temp. That's a little bit too much for this, so we're going to go with regular 262. Getting the high temp off with heat is much more difficult. I always find this is good to cue up one side, leave that screw in it, leave my driver on that side there. I'm going to come over, put the screw in the other side, get this ready to go. I'm going to come into it here. Again, I'm going to hit 18 pounds. It's going to limit out. And it's often good on these front ones to change them whenever you get there. So these things are pretty soft. They're not made to come in and out of here 6 times. Again, now that I've got pressure on here, I want to check these still good to go. Now I'm going to drop my trigger group in. A little trick here, stick your finger in here from the top and hold it right to the trigger bar, and then I drop my disco in and it rides right on my finger and can't fall in the hole. I can push up on it, set it wherever I want, and the sear rides right over that. And then both are going to be sitting a little low, but if I just push my finger up towards the back of the gun here, I can line them up so that the pin comes in. That's a fast way to do the pin. Now that they're in there, I'm going to check. It's really close in here. I'm going to check and make sure that that sear moves freely and that disco isn't. We got enough clearance. It's close, but it works. It's tight in there, but it's good. The hammer you can put in from the back and really control it because you can still hold on to it. The sear spring's often a trouble spot for folks. So this leaf here is going to control my sear, so that needs to sit on my sear. This leaf here is going to sit on the back of my disconnector, the slant on my disconnector, which is pushing on my trigger bow. And on Atlas guns, this doesn't do anything. That would be if you had a working grip safety, but we don't. Sometimes these are bent out a little bit. Different builders at the shop here do it a little bit differently. It really doesn't matter. It's a style thing, but don't worry about this side so much. It's probably not affecting anything unless you crank it out this way, and then if it's making a lot of contact here, it's going to put more pressure forward. But if this is in good tune and came out of the gun good, you shouldn't have to adjust it much. So you're going to flop it in there, and then again, I'm looking for a couple things. One, that this is going to touch the back of the sear, and that this is going to touch the back of the disconnector. And I really want them to pretty much, with the hammer all the way forward, so hammer's all the way forward, I want these two to be touching. I don't want a lot of space in there. These two look pretty good. Both the left and right are making just a little bit of contact. I'm going to start to slide my mainspring housing on. I'm going to slide that right up to my disco, or my strut here. Then I'm going to come back in. I'm going to pull that down, push my beaver tail all the way up, and then connect there. Remember, these have a slot in them on ours and the Chile ones. The other brands typically do not. Send my pins in. Put my mag catch back in. So the little bit of trick here is that it's going to have to be in that same position. So you're going to come out right there. Boom. That's probably 90% of where it would be all the way extended where it turns in. Small end of this pin first. Hammer has to be cocked to put the thumb safeties back on. Thumb safety on this side comes up and then down into the slot over here. And then this is, we don't sell one just yet, but we should. But there's a bunch of folks who make these little plastic tools for this. It's what works the best. It doesn't scratch anything. But you're going to hold this thumb safety on the right side up like it's on, and you're also going to mimic that with the left. Now remember, these two both have slots. You have a female slot on this side and a male slot here that have to align. So you're going to have to align them in the gun. The more you do it, the better at it you get. And again, the hammer has to be backed because we're going to get behind the sear here and block the sear. That's how this safety would operate. So I always lift up the safety to about where I think they're going to be on, and then start to wiggle this, and you'll kind of get it, and you'll be like, oh, it's touching, it's almost there, and then this pin's in the way, right? So once they're lined up, I push the pin in, and then you get a little more fidgeting to kind of find that sweet spot, and they often do what those did and snap right together. Now sometimes you're going to feel a little bit of wiggle on this side of the thumb safety. This one's really tight, but some of them wiggle a little bit. As the split in your female side of that, start to loosen up, you're going to get a little more wiggle there. You can tap those really, really lightly with a really, really small hammer and tighten those back up. But that's a function of if you're going to use this side, the female side, the legs are going to start to bend a little bit, and they're going to loosen up. So lefties are going to see that a lot more predominantly. The whole bottom end of the gun's together. Put a little oil on my rails. I like to put a little drop on the disco. Line up my rails, and then my trick to this, and this one's a good one, a good example. It's really not showing me the whole link hole in there. So I'm just going to take something small, and I catch it and I just spin it, and that'll give me the link hole lined up perfectly with the exterior hole of the frame. I push in, I'm not quite far enough back here. You gotta be just out of battery for this to work. Well, so line it up, and I start my, now I know I'm through the link here, so then I pull the gun back and I pinch it with 2 fingers where I need to line up with the slide hole and then push that in. If that's a little tight, I might tap it with a soft hammer. Boom. If you do all that and your gun stops like this, then you missed the link hole. Just take the slide stop out and start that process over again. But quick bottom end disassembly of an Atlas Athena. Hope to see you on the range soon.